to our budget review for March 14, 2018. I call this meeting to order and ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Trustee Kammerer?
Here.
Carbonaro?
Here.
Daney?
Here.
Cabrera?
Here.
Hopkins?
Here.
Ranky?
Here.
President Wallace?
Here. Then I'll turn it over to our village administrator, Paula.
Good evening, Mayor, Village Board. It's a pleasure to introduce the administration budget. I think the quickest and most efficient way to go about this is I'll take you through some of the highlights. We'll talk about some of the numbers, and we'll wrap up with civic funding and our new economic incentive line item. As I would imagine, since those are new and different, that'll generate a little more discussion than some of the other items. So I'll take you through our 18-19 highlights. We've done some shifting with some of the personnel. We now have HR and economic development that fall under the administration department. Our new economic incentive line item that we will present to you shortly. Staff has made a concerted effort, especially since this current board has come in, to work with other taxing bodies and try to overlap some of the costs. We've met with the fire department and worked on some things with them. One of the big things of this past year was our strategic planning process, which is really the foundation of this entire document. The board instructed Paula and myself and the department heads to go out into the community, interview stakeholders, civic groups, businesses, residents, staff, not just the department heads, but also midline staff, and that helped formulate the strategic plan that you adopted a few meetings ago. And you'll see those throughout this budget document. A few other things that highlight is our two largest capital projects in the history of the village of Bartlett that we're working on, which is the new police department, as well as the new Lake Michigan water project. Also, if you'll notice in our activities measures, 2017 was a very productive year at the Diocese. You passed 161 ordinances. That's 1.5 times more than the previous year and the most that we've had in 14 years. Another highlight was the mayor and board appointed the village's second ever administrator, Paula Schumacher. Certainly that's made me a better employee, and I feel like the directors would say the same thing. To take you through some of our personnel, and feel free to stop me if you have any questions. You'll notice we went from 7.12 to 9.62. Although that looks like an increase of full-time staff, really what that does is show the change in personnel from both community development as well as finance. We have no personnel request. Like I said, just the changes. We have no capital outlay. Moving on to professional development on page 8. What you see here is what you've seen in previous years. The only change is you'll see a couple new detail items that have to do with human resources as well as economic development. Those were always in the budget, but now they're reflected in the administration budget as opposed to the other two departments. Moving on to professional association detail, same thing. A few additions. They're not new to the budget. They're just new to the administration budget. Moving on to page 12, I'm on now. The line item details. What you see, some of the highlights is our economic development advertising, which is $30,000. Again, that number is not new to the overall budget. It's just new to our department's budget since Tony's come to our department. The economic incentive program for $150,000 is a new item and has not been in the budget in previous years. The civic donation request, you'll see a large difference. That reduction is due to the fact that last year the board donated $40,000 to the Free to Be Me Park, and that fell under the civic line item request. So you'll see a reduction in that. The money that was budgeted for this year that is in front of you this evening is identical to the civic dollars that you gave last year, and we'll go over that. Moving on to page 13, again, highlights some of the new costs.
Scott, let me stop you for a second. Go back to 12 there. The tuition reimbursement program was removed? Why is that?
That program is based on the ability to fund through the budget. We had two requests this year, and we changed the program significantly. We decided to not fund that simply because of our budget situation. That is a tuition reimbursement program, and we revamped that this year to require a commitment from the employee that they would stay, I think, it's 2 years, after they receive their degree, or the reimbursement, and if they leave within those 2 years, that they would be responsible to pay back that tuition reimbursement. We moved it into our department. It's now a central fund. It used to be funded out of each department, and each department director had the ability to put that number into their budget. We centralized it into admin, and looking at the applications that we had, significantly lower from the previous year, we decided not to fund it this year. And before, could you recall what that amount was? You said 12,000. Yeah, it was a reduction of 12,000.
I'm sorry?
The total reduction was about $12,000.
But it's still available if they stay for 2 years, correct?
Not this year. We'll look at it again next year to see if we can.
Do we have any staff members that are currently active in this or currently would be entitled?
Employees have to, under the new program, employees have to apply for it each year. So it's not an ongoing reimbursement program that we pulled away.
Right. So the answer was there isn't anyone currently?
We had two applications this year for employees seeking those dollars for reimbursement for their classes. We had, I think, do you recall two in CD? Do you recall? One in CD, one in police. One in CD and one in police. And those are reimbursements for classes that they're taking, above and beyond the training that we provide.
Well, I don't think that we should terminate tuition reimbursement for the staff. I think it's something that we should look at, and I think it should be an incentive to keep these people motivated to stay in school and do something, and I can agree with you that they have to stay for 2 years, but just to eliminate tuition reimbursement, when I looked at that, that's one of the things that jumped out. I don't agree with eliminating it.
If you certainly would like us to put that back, I can. I would just clarify that reimbursement is for continuing education related to their position, but not part of our regular training budget. So they still have the departmental, they're still available, the dollars are still available for departmental training that we do. This is the, class that they take that, UC Center, one of those two
I'd like to see some type of tuition reimbursement added back to the budget. I don't hear anything from anybody.
I I know it's not insignificant to those who get it, but I think it's insignificant in the overall picture of the budget.
Right, so our next item here is civic group funding requests. You'll be, as you're familiar with, in 2016, we started a formal grant application process where civic groups would fill out a document and asking for dollars and justifying those dollars within the document. This year we have 5 requests. The 4th of July Committee is requesting the same dollars that they've requested in the past of $12,000. We have Heritage Days. They're requesting $35,000. Last year they were granted 5. Arts and Bartlett is requesting $15,000. Last year they were requested 5. The Bartlett Chamber of Commerce, once again, is asking for $2,210, which is the same amount that they've requested in previous years. And we have a new civic group request, which is the Bartlett Veterans, and they're requesting $7,500 for signage. And again, the amount that we did budget reflects the same dollars that were granted in last year's budget. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
I don't mean to nitpick, but you said $35,000, or did you mean $3,500?
$35,000. And that would go towards ramping up their event. They're looking for bands that would be highlighted by the Chicago Bears contingent of Dan Hampton and Steve McMichael. They're looking for further staging equipment, sound equipment, a big outdoor screen to view the Bears game, food trucks, beer garden, event insurance, and the trolley would make up the remainder of that cost. So they're really looking up to ramp up their event. So that's a significant increase in their asking dollars.
And is that would there be a change in the location from their previous music venue?
From what I understand, they would have the same layout. We do have an individual here from Heritage Days. Dale is here, who runs that foundation. I know they are looking to expand their footprint and activities.
Scott, I'm going to need a little more breakdown on the community relations portion of that. We've got community relations, $43,800. Then below that, you've got the breakfast, softball, special events, parades, $5,000. Medical waste, $6,000, and civic group funding, $32,008. And then below that, you have Arts and Bartlett. There's no value on that, no amount. 4th of July, same. Veterans Memorial, same. Bartlett Chambers, same. Lions Club and Heritage Days, there's no amount.
The Arts and Bartlett is requesting $15,000. Last year they were granted 5. The 4th of July is still requesting $12,000 like they have each year. The Veterans Memorial is requesting $7,500. The Heritage Days is requesting $35,000 from 5.
And where does,
The
Is
Bartlett
that all-
Lions Club that you see in there,
I'm sorry?
the Bartlett Lions Club that you
Right.
see in there, we left in there because they typically ask for $500 for refreshments.
Yeah.
They've done that, I think, the last dozen or so years.
Right.
We weren't entirely sure if they were going forward with that, and they are. So we left that specific line in there.
Is that what makes up the $43,800?
No, that makes up a lot bigger than that.
The civic group asks total $71,710 from the 5 groups that I had mentioned. Last year's amount that the board granted was $32,710. So the difference in civic group funding comes from the Bartlett Veterans Memorial for $7,500 and the increase from $5,000 to $35,000 for the Bartlett Heritage Days, as well as an increase in Arts in Bartlett from 5 to 15.
My recollection from previous years is that we were talking about slowly but surely reducing this. I would be opposed to increasing this line item. I think if we're talking about imposing additional taxes and making cuts, I don't think it's appropriate to increase this line item.
The dollars that's in the line item
Is the same.
matches the exact same dollars
Right.
that you proportioned last year for this line item.
Which then goes to the other part of my statement, is I thought we were going to decrease this over time, and I would be in favor of decreasing it over time, especially if the state continues to cut our funding. And I know that kind of makes me the bad guy, but I don't think any of these, I think all of these organizations are fantastic, but I think at some point, as a matter of policy, we have to say, look, we've got to cut as much as we can before we're looking at the taxpayers for more money.
Let me ask this question then, because I guess I just don't know, as it relates to other villages. Is it a commonplace occurrence for other villages to give money to civic organizations in their villages?
That's really a unique perspective. I mean, for example, some 4th of July committees are encompassed within the village. Some of them carry their own weight. I mean, when you look at these requests, a lot of them are their own commissions. A lot of them are self-funded. A lot of them aren't. I would say that's a difficult question to answer.
I would agree with what Scott said. We looked at developing the application process that we have. We looked at other communities, and there are a number of communities that have an application process. St. Charles comes to mind. I think we've done quite a bit, where organizations can request a grant up to an X dollar amount and, basically say, here's what we want the money for. And the board decides yea or nay. There are other towns that would like jointly put something on like Heritage Day, so they would be a much larger part. Some of those communities that are part of their chambers more than we are, they tend to give more dollars there. So it's really unique to what the community requests and what the tradition is in the community, I would say. It varies greatly.
So even though it's a considerably larger town, let's say the city of Naperville, with their Rib Fest and all the various things they do you think that they allocate funds that then support those entities in their community?
I would say something of that grand scale would be self-sufficient, but one thing that's unique from town to town is Arts in Bartlett is Arts in Bartlett. And Bartlett Heritage Days it's a unique event into Bartlett in itself. So, again, it's a good question, but a difficult one to pin down.
But Ribfest does jog something in my mind, is that, when we say support, this is purely financial support, dollars. Our public works departments, our police department, we work very closely with these organizations on their events. We're setting barricades, we're working on routes. Our police department has a large presence at these events and helps with traffic and numerous other things. So, there is, when we say that the 4th of July is requesting $12,000 for fireworks, it's $12,000 for fireworks, but our staff is there all week long.
Well, as the mayor has already just said with regards to funding the tuition reimbursement program is a small amount of money in a budget comparatively, I also kind of look at that the same way when we're talking about civic groups and the funding that at least we're contributing, helping these organizations, and I see it as a good thing and feel like the amount of money that we would be contributing would be small in comparison to what's going on in the budget. So I'd certainly be in favor of keeping them, but not necessarily expanding them to any sort of, greater degree. But I think it's a good thing for us to be doing.
Yeah, I'm in favor of leaving in the budget where it was last year, have them work around those numbers. What do we have for additional funds because of the bike race not being held? There's 18,000 out there that we could potentially move, or we already eliminated that from this budget, I'm sure. Okay. Yeah, I think maybe in a better year where we're not getting pinched on LGDF and other things, maybe the board would be more favorable for something like this. But at this stage, where we're trying to, as Trustee Ranke said, trying to find ways to shore up a fairly good-sized hole, it makes it real difficult for us to expand those programs. So I would suggest having them work within the budget that we set and the budget that the staff recommended that we provided last year.
But you're talking about without the Free to Be Me playground donation.
That's
You're
already
talking-
done.
No, but you're saying to what was provided for each group last year to stay with that.
Yeah.
I would, Heritage Days is a wonderful celebration of our heritage, of course, and those individuals who have started it and worked through it have worked tirelessly to make it what it is. I would agree that I think that going from 5,000 to 35,000 in one jump is a lot. And that they could look for ways to self-support like the 4th of July Committee has done over the years and years that they've been working.
Anything else? I think the general consensus is to go with the staff's recommendation of what we supplied for last year, maybe have them massage their requests.
We will do that. Thank you. The next item that we have on the administration budget is the economic incentive line item, and we put $150,000 in there. And that line item came from a series of discussions, both within the strategic plan. We outlined different tools to attract different businesses and using economic incentives to do that. It was also generated from many discussions had by the village board as far as earmarking video gaming money. I know that's been a topic that we've talked about for several years. So that's where that dollar amount came from. And I'm going to turn it over to Tony to talk about this line item, and I'll add a few comments, and then we'll certainly take any questions you have after that.
Thank you, and thank you, Mayor and Board, for having us present this tonight. As a longtime economic development practitioner now, going on 18 years, what I've witnessed and experienced is the level of competition for new businesses and investments continues to heighten year after year between various communities. It's often said among those who are in the profession that economic development is a competitive sport. I hear them say that a lot, and I say that too. With this in mind, our economic development team is proposing this new line item in the amount of $150,000 in order to seed a new initiative to help the village compete on a more level playing field with communities in the area and the broader Chicago area. They have more formal incentive programs in place as part of their economic development toolbox. We do not propose this as a way to put somebody in business, so to speak, but as a way to leverage private investment, in other words, to fill gaps that exist for projects that encounter various difficulties. In particular with some of the chronic vacant and underutilized buildings in the village, and also to help attract those companies that might be looking at an undeveloped land site that request an incentive to help build a new facility. We would strive to create and implement a program that would also lead to future job growth in the community and for targeted types of businesses that would make the village proud to have them. And so again, we're presenting this as a new line item this year, and we're all ready to answer any questions you have on it. I do want to add, because I was asked, village-wide. We're proposing this as a village-wide program, not specific to any particular business just district or geographic location. Available to existing businesses as well, Paul is pointing out in their expansion plans, I might add.
Tony, would this have been something that we would have used for, say, like when Ace Hardware came back to town, or not?
That's a good example of one where this might have been used. As you recall, they entered into a sales tax sharing agreement with the village. So it could have come into play in that case, but it didn't exist at that point. And since they are a sales tax producer, that's the direction we went in for that particular business.
Tony, what would be the criteria for disbursement of these funds? To which businesses that would be new to town, to which businesses that are existing businesses? How would we make that happen and make it fair?
Yeah, those are important parameters of a program. And we envisioned this at first as primarily an attraction tool for those buildings that might not meet current code, that need some extensive renovations, or in some cases for a large, perhaps even multi-million-dollar project going to a new site. So you're asking, I mean, it would also be used, as Paula mentioned, it can be used to assist existing businesses in terms of expansion plans they might have. At this point, we haven't created all the criteria.
The criteria would have a lot of depth. It would have, what's its sales tax projections? What are the jobs? Will it increase foot traffic in the downtown? Will it increase daytime traffic in the community? Will a series of boxes will need to be checked prior to us presenting an expenditure of this nature to the board. A series of checks.
Those are all measurable.
Does it fit into the business mix? I'll be honest with you. If a video gaming establishment or a dry cleaner approaches Tony, he's probably not going to discuss an incentive package with them. But if one of those hidden gems that we've all talked about for years approaches us, it would be nice for staff to have the ability to say, when they ask about money, it would be nice to at least have the ability to say, we can talk about it, let's discuss it, we'll meet with our staff internally, we'll put together a report for the village board to look at and to see if whether or not we can get paid on the back end of that investment. You know, it's not so much of an expenditure. We want to give this money so it's an investment in the community, and we get paid on the back end of that.
And that there's some sort of metric involved that
Absolutely.
that we can see the return on our investment on behalf of our taxpayers.
Exactly. The other thing that we envision doing is working with the EDC to put together those measurable parameters. They have a set of metrics that they use, and Tony reports on those every year to them. So I imagine that we would put those in there as well, and put together that application packet with the EDC and then bring it to you for your review.
And we're not talking about giving a business a check, right? We're talking about incentivizing them so that if they have a particular hardship or cost, if they needed to establish a water or sewer connection or upsize a water or sewer connection or some kind of public or quasi-public improvement, that's what we're talking about, right? It's not just like a grant. It's not a gift.
Correct.
Okay. And you think over time, do you see the balance in this account increasing?
Yes, absolutely. This type of amount is somewhat of a pilot project. You know, the increments haven't exactly been determined, whether it would be a series of $10,000 or $15,000 grants or $50,000 and up, but it could certainly be one of these ones that if it brings the type of success that we hope that it does and envision that it will, that we can see it as a successful program, and very well might be sitting here asking to increase this in future years.
And ultimately, we get to vote on this.
Right?
Yes, we kind of looked at the facade program that we had in existence as kind of a model for that. The business owner who benefited from that facade rebate program, showed their expenses, showed their investment. Those applications went to the EDC first for approval, and then went to the village board for approval, and I imagine the same process of approval.
Well done.
I think our economic development team's doing an outstanding job, and this is just one more thing to add that, to help you, bring businesses into our village. We don't have a TIFT anymore, and this is spread out throughout the community. I think it's an outstanding job. So, make it work.
Thank you. And that wraps up the department's budget. If you have any other questions, we'd be happy to answer them.
One of the things that I noticed that I'm not sure of, do the townships have a medical waste program?
That actually, Paula brought up to me after the production of this budget. We're actually looking to scale that back greatly. We're in discussions with DuPage County about, instead of us doing a monthly program where we have to have police officers in, we're looking to scale it back to what we did several years ago, which was just either a yearly or bi-yearly cleanup. We're in talks with DuPage County about that right now.
DuPage County and maybe the townships? Because I could see shifting that 6,000 over to the civic groups. That would make sense to me, because I know those services are available elsewhere, and it doesn't make sense to duplicate them.
We can do that.
Good point.
Would that add to the civic funding then?
Yeah.
Sure, if you were appropriated the 6,000 from that to civic funding, we could do that, yeah.
So then we'd increase the civic funding.
Yeah, I think we should increase civic funding. I think it's important that we have civic funding, but I don't think we should increase it. That's just my thought.
Yeah, it's fair enough. I just didn't think it was necessary to be in there. Good. Thanks, Scott. And I'm assuming at some point we're going to get like an explanation of the shifted personnel salaries and stuff, right? Because I know some of them are getting shared now. So it looks like on the budget that it's 26% higher, but it really isn't. It's the same. We'll see a lower one in the other departments. You're not playing the shell game with us, are you? Roberta smiled. I think she's got something up her sleeve.
She's hiding. She's hiding behind your back.
75 plus 6, so far we found 81. That's 1/10 of 1%.
Well, good evening, Mayor and members of the Village Board. It's my pleasure to be here to present the department budget tonight. Starting off with the budget highlights. Our budget does not include any request to expand our authorized staffing levels. Initially, when we put the budget together, we were hoping to fill an open police officer and records clerk position, but since our budget meetings, we've decided to leave those two positions open, as well as an open investigation secretary position. So we'll have 3 full-time positions that are open that we won't be filling this year. Additionally, our budget request includes fees for interfaces and code updates regarding our computer-aided dispatch, which we call CAD. That's our connection between DUCOM and our records management system. County and DUCOM are in the process of replacing the CAD system DUCOM currently uses, and that's going to require some interfaces between the new CAD system and our existing RMS, as well as a code update in our records management system. Moving on to the strategic goals. The first routine goal we have is to enhance public awareness, and we're seeking to do that through continuing to utilize our social media. We've tried to do a lot through Twitter and Facebook, as well as put out some videos. And I think Deputy Chief Kellis has done a good job of making some of that entertaining to the point where people are interacting with us. So that's a good thing. We'll continue to do that. As far as the funding part of that goes, we've applied for $145,702 in grant funds for the upcoming fiscal year. So as we hope to be awarded those grants, we'll issue press releases on those as well. We'll continue using the Bartlett to get word out about activities and services that we offer. And then our mobile outreach program, we're going to continue to try and do that this year to help build relationships with the community and get information out about things that are going on with the police department in the village. We're also going to continue to seek to enhance our participation in community events. One of the things that's worked real well for us is using social media and press releases to issue traffic advisories regarding those events, street closures, traffic routes, and things like that. And that seemed to, especially for the 4th of July, really help with traffic flow on the night of the 4th of July, getting people out of the fireworks. Moving on to the complex goals. As far as maintaining or enhancing village standards for service delivery, we incorporated a new program this year that was offered for free to us through DUCOM. It's called Frontline. What that does, it offers our residents an opportunity to enter overnight parking requests, vacation watch requests online instead of calling our non-emergency number, which helps free up our records clerks from taking calls over the phone, but also makes it more convenient for residents to be able to do that from wherever they're at without having to call. It also gives our officers the opportunity to pull those up right from their squad car computers as they're out on patrol and do the vacation watches, enter the fact that they did them, as well as overnight parking as well. The other new thing that we're excited about is the new police department. We think that the layout of that department is going to allow us to better serve our residents and help us meet their individual needs. We did put a lot of planning into it so that we can hopefully avoid victims running into offenders in the department. We have space to interview people in a way that protects their privacy, and I think it's going to be a good thing for us and the community. As far as routine, long-term goals, we're going to continue to seek to expand the talents of our staff. As I said, Deputy Chief Kellis is really active in the social media. He's been doing a great job with that. We have an officer at the middle school who has created several after-school programs that she gets the kids involved in positive activities that benefit the community. And it's also a positive interaction between our officer and the kids, so that's a good thing. She's going to continue to work on that. We're going to continue to offer our citizen police academies and teen police academies, as well as produce those videos that we do at the graduations in-house. We also rolled out a new recruitment website. We have a police test coming up this year in June for police officers, entry-level police officers. So we created our own website. I think it was around $100 to do that, and we're hoping to reach more people that way and advertise our department at less of a cost. We also have a detective who's heavily trained in investigating cyber-based crimes and as well as crimes involving cell phones or that might have evidence on cell phones. So we're using his skills not only to help our department, but he's also one of the leading guys that does that in the Chicagoland area. So we assist other departments with that as well. We're going to continue to work with community development on the downtown TOD plan and traffic flow. We're still in the process of working on getting our traffic counts. We tried to put the traffic counters out last week, and the ground was so hard that it kept bending the nails as we tried to put the counters in the asphalt. So hopefully with a little bit warmer weather coming up, we can get those counters down and get those traffic counts back to you. We're going to continue to work with IDOT too to improve traffic safety along Route 59. It's going to be quite a summer as far as construction goes. 59 and Stearns will be going on. Route 59 and Lake Street ramp construction will be going on. I think they're in the process of beginning resurfacing on Lake Street, and also there's a possibility that Army Trail and 59 construction can start soon too. So we'll be heavily involved with them. We're also going to be involved with Public Works and the work that would be going on Stearns Road between South Bartlett and Prospect. We're going to assist them using our message board to get messages out to people that the road's going to be closed and how long it will be closed for. And we're continuing to work with the schools on traffic plans and parking issues in and around the schools. As far as our highlights go, this year we finished second place in National Night Out. We also finished third place in the Illinois Traffic Safety Challenge. That's the second year in a row we finished third place in the Traffic Safety Challenge. Hopefully this year we can finish higher. Let's see, moving on to the next page. We held our 4th annual Citizens Police Academy and our 3rd annual Teen Citizen Police Academy. And one of the nice things about that is the graduates continue to be involved. They come to help us with our community events, and they participate in our open house and National Night Out. And I think getting that message out of understanding what it is that we actually do to them, having gone through the academy, is a great thing and helps build a relationship between us and them. So we're going to continue to do that. You know, mental health continues to be a big thing. A lot of the calls that we go on involve somebody who's suffering some type of mental health crisis. So we're continuing to build the number of officers we have certified in crisis intervention. We call that CIT, for Crisis Intervention Team. What we seek to do with that is deal with people who are in those types of crises with compassionate and empathetic professional resources. A lot of that has to deal with de-escalation techniques as well. Similarly, we're training our officers in critical incident stress management. And really what that is training for them to recognize signs of stress or post-traumatic stress incidents that the officers are suffering and be able to reach out to them and say, hey, this is what I'm noticing with you, and get them the help that they need or suggest that they get some help or talk to someone. So it's peer-to-peer support. We expect to receive hopefully $148,095 in grant allocations. Those are for various traffic-related grants, tobacco enforcement, alcohol enforcement type compliance checks. We continue to seek out whatever grants we can to help offset funds from our budget. So we'll continue to be active on researching grants. That really wraps it up for our highlights. Moving on to the police summary, you'll see that the staffing numbers I talked about are reflected in our proposed staffing. Police officers were authorized for 44, but we're going to keep that at 43 and not fill that open slot. The last 2 years, we've also not filled the secretary position, which is the investigation secretary, and the records clerk position. Currently, we have 7 full-time clerks, 2 part-time clerks, which makes up the total of 8, but really we're authorized for 9 there. So we're holding that records clerk position open as well. Under the activity measures, we're expecting an increase in several of those categories, or most of the categories, although a small increase. Moving on to the personnel request detail. As I mentioned, we're not requesting any new positions this year. That brings us to our capital outlay. So the first item we have here is 3 patrol vehicles. It's a regular replacement of 3 2015 patrol vehicles. Protected mileage is anywhere between 78 to about 87,000 miles on those vehicles, and those would come out of the vehicle replacement fund. Second vehicle is for our officer who's assigned to the federal task force. Her vehicle, we project to have about 106,000 miles on it at the time of replacement. And then the final vehicle that we would be requesting is an investigations vehicle. It's a 2009, and it will have about 77,000 miles on it at the time that it's replaced. The CAD software interfaces are what I talked about in some of our budget highlights. These are required because DUCOM is replacing that CAD system, and we need to be able to interface between the CAD system and our records management system. The flip side to that is every fire district, fire department, and police department in DuPage County is in the process of replacing their records management system as part of an ongoing thing that DuPage is doing. We were unable to do it because we're still under contract with our current RMS vendor, and so the cost here would be much greater if we had to replace our entire records management system. So This should get us through. The RMS Records Management System Code update is next, and I spoke about that as well. We do have about 2 years left currently on our current contract with our records management system vendor right now. Item number 6 is a copier. This would be purchased for the investigation section for the copy room that's in the new building there. We would propose to purchase this copier using equitable sharing funds rather than come out of the general fund. Item number 7 is rifle-rated ballistic shields with lighting. We do have 2 ballistic shields right now. They are not rifle-rated, so they would stop a pistol round but not a rifle round. These would be rated to stop rifle rounds, and in the short time that I've been chief, we've had 4 or 5 incidents that I can count off the top of my head, 3 of which involved a NIPUS SWAT team call out. But our officers are the first on the scene, and I need them to be safe. And if there is an active shooter, we're not waiting, we're going in. And I want them to be able to get to the threat and do it as safely as possible. So these rifle-rated ballistic shields would go a great way toward helping ensure their safety and allowing us to respond to an emergency like that. Number 8 is automated external defibrillators. We're asking to replace 5 of them. The current models we have are no longer being supported. We can't get batteries, we can't get parts, so they're outdated. What the vendor will do, though, is they will give us a credit on the ones that we would be replacing. So we would be proposing to purchase 5 of those, and we have used those a lot for life safety measures. Item number 9, I can cut from my budget. I talked to our high school resource officer. Initially, he requested this because he wasn't able to get on the records management system from the computer in the high school. He'd either have to be on the high school system or on our records management system, and he was logging in, logging out of each one, and it was pretty tedious for him. So that's why he requested the second computer. But through working with IT, they were able to get another monitor, and he's able to stay logged into both simultaneously now, and so we no longer need this computer, so we can cut that and not have to purchase it. Portable traffic counters, those are what we use for our, to get our traffic counts and do our traffic studies. We're proposing to replace 2 of those. We use those a lot. We have 2 laser radar units that we're seeking to replace. Those are handheld units that officers use for traffic speed enforcement activities and get used a lot during our grant enforcement periods. Item number 12 is cell phone forensic software. This allows that detective I was telling you about who has all the special skills to investigate those types of crimes to recover deleted texts, emails, things like that from phones that we suspect were used in crimes. So right now, if people delete them, we have no way of being able to recover those. And this software would give us the ability to do that. And with the uptick in the number of cyber-based crimes and crimes utilizing cell phones, we would be able to do that. So we would be able to do it either using consent or we would have to get a warrant for something like that. But this would be the software that would allow us to be able to recover those deleted texts or emails. Item number 13 is treadmills. I tried looking back at our past budgets to see when we last purchased treadmills. We have 2 of them. They're both pretty beat up, and they get used a lot, not only by my staff, but other village staff as well. Public Works uses them, village staff uses them, my staff uses them. So we'd be seeking to replace both of those. The next item is a commander's truck video camera system. That's the only marked vehicle in our fleet that does not currently have an in-car camera system in it. The following item is a laptop computer for field training officers. That one is a computer that the field training officers use and take with them in and out of the car to help report what the officers who are in field training program are doing. So what I want to say about those 2 items, item 14 and item 15, are BAPS had contacted me in reference to their annual walkathon. And their major sponsor from the walkathon has to do with them planting trees, but they also always have 2 local sponsors that they seek to make donations to. This year, they asked if the fire district and the police department could be their local beneficiaries. So I gave them a list of things that I had requested in my budget, and they said that they would like to either provide the item 14, the in-car camera system, or the laptop computer for the field training officers as part of their contribution to a local beneficiary. So they haven't got back to me on which one that is, but if they do wind up donating one of those items, we would not purchase that item that they donate.
Just tell them we already purchased 15, so they have to take 14. Does it make sense to me? It's 1,900 extra dollars.
Item 16 is the solar flashing school zone signs. We've been implementing these over a period of years. These two solar flashing school zone signs would be slated to be installed by Prairie View School along Mayflower Lane there. And then I think the only two schools that wouldn't have them would be Liberty and Hawk Hollow. So Hawk Hollow, we don't feel we need right now with Jacaranda, but we can reevaluate that as the new subdivision goes in and see at that time if we think it would be warranted to install some there too, at which point we would request those in our budget. Number 17 is another weight machine that consists of a barbell with steel rails that allows someone to lift weights without having a spotter, so they can do it in a safer manner. And then the final item in our capital outlay is a solar-powered pole-mounted radar box. If you recall, last year we purchased 2 of those as traffic calming measures. Public Works has helped us out a lot by mounting brackets on poles throughout town. So they're portable. We attach them to a pole, leave them there for a week or 2, and then we move it on to the next location. This would give us a total of 4. And we'd be able to move them around a lot more. I think last year we initially had 4 requested. You asked me to cut 2 of them, see how it went. It seemed like we got a lot of use out of them and people liked them, and so we're asking for 2 more this year. Questions?
Well, yes, because even though I'm obviously very much in favor of the full-mounted radar boxes, so to speak, and the traffic calming measures for Bartlett, you know, I see them up and down my streets, and I'm just wondering how effective they've been. You know, they don't seem dramatic enough. They're very calm. They're calm, but, you know, you look at it and it's a yellow kind of flash if you go too fast, and it's...
How would you know?
Well, you know, I test them every now and then. You got to make sure they're working, for crying out loud. But I'm wondering if we should be looking at different types or something other than these that we've purchased to have a little, either a bigger display or, I mean, I don't want to make it so it takes 2 people to hoist them up on a signpost, but something that, you know, gets people's attention a little bit more, I think.
I can tell you we had a bigger one, I don't know, maybe 5 or 10 years ago, and it was very hard to move around. It was hard to mount. It took several people to hold it up to get it up on the post.
Right.
These are a little bit more portable. I think what we could do is, you know, we should supplement this with having an actual officer out there. You know, that'll get people's attention more, so.
The radar gun, yeah.
Follow it up with some radar enforcement at the same time.
I was going to bring that up. I think we should cut the laser radar handheld guns out.
Why, you scared?
I don't really think we need any more of those in town. Seriously, though, I think it would be beneficial to save the $30,000 on a car that has 77,000 projected miles. That would make sense for me on the investigations vehicle, to leave that go for another year. If you think that would be safe for that guy to drive that car around.
I think we could do
Line
that.
item number 3.
Yep.
Let's strike that. The shields, I had a question about. When we call in the, what is the acronym?
IPIS.
Yeah, they have those, like, I noticed that one incident we had, they had them all over.
They do.
So you explained that it's more for our ability to act before they get to the scene. Is that accurate?
Yeah, so what happens is our officers respond to the initial call, and then we have to, once we know what the circumstances are, we have to call NIPAS. And then NIPAS determines whether it meets their criteria and whether they're going to come out or not. So they may not even come out, and then it's up to us to deal with on our own. If NIPAS does come out, there's still a response time for them to get here, get set up, and get everyone in place. But if, like I said, if there's an active shooter, and unfortunately it's happening a lot more around the country, my officers are going to go there and they're trained to go in. If it's a school, if it's a business or whatever, and there's active shooting going on inside a business or a school or any establishment, we're going to go in and try and stop that threat. And I want them to have the tools that they need to try and do that as safely for them as possible.
Understood. One of the things that I was curious about is the amount that we spend in parking for a 4th of July event. You were kind of mentioning that. I think it would be beneficial for this board to see, when we're paying out $12,000 for fireworks and then probably $50,000, $60,000 that week for police tactics or whatever that number might be. Yeah. I think it would be beneficial for the board when we make these decisions to see the 4th of July committee's financials. I would like to see that. I would like to see if it's a situation. I know that they do fairly well. I know that we pick up the blunt of the night of the fireworks. And if we're going to get into some mode, at some point there's going to be an accident. Somebody's going to get run over. Something's going to happen. It's a really popular event, which is great, but something's going to happen. So I know that we've looked at potentially busing or bringing people in from other parking lots on some type of a bus or something, which would make more sense. And you guys have done an unbelievable job of traffic flow the last few years, but it just seems to get bigger and bigger. And I don't see where the village should be responsible, unless that committee's hurting, to make sure that we maintain the cost of the safety. So I would like to see that.
Let's talk about item number 12, the cell phone forensic software. It seems like one of those nice-to-haves, but not one of those gotta-haves. Isn't there a neighboring municipality? I mean, if we're going through the trouble to get a search warrant, isn't there a neighboring municipality? Doesn't the sheriff, either Cook or DuPage, have this software? Can't we just kind of work with them and not buy it?
The answer is probably yes, we could find someone. I think Naperville may be the only town around us that I know that has something like that right now. It's not just having the software, it's having somebody in the area who's trained to be able to use it. And Chris is one of those people who's gotten grants. In fact, I think he just got another grant. Is it from the Secret Service? Yes. Secret Service to go for additional training as well. So he's had a lot of training, and you know, we can cut it if you want. It just would assist us in those types of investigations.
What?
Yes.
I think we had a number of cases that we've come up again from the last year where having that access to the cellular data and the person who knows how to use that software would have helped our investigation, in my opinion, much more than, we spent several days waiting, if I'm not mistaken, to get into the cell phone.
Yeah, and you never know what the other agency's caseload is like either. One of the things I can propose is maybe instead of buying this out of the general fund, we can use equitable sharing funds to buy it. That would be a valid use for that.
Well,
I think that's a great idea.
right, I was thinking of that. I mean, how do we aggressively leverage the fact that we have this and maybe another department doesn't? We can share or swap or trade, barter.
We could make it an enterprise zone. Every time they use it, we're charging them $500. Yeah. Why not? Attorneys do it. The only other question I had, I guess, was IDOT. I just hope that we're sending them a letter every week, every day of every week, because it sounds like a gong. 59 in Stearns, 59 in Army Trail, 59 in, it's like a over and over thing, and it's, every time there's the smallest accident, Chief, we need to send them a picture of it and say, here, 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 here.
I think they're aware of it, and, that's
Yeah.
why they're committing to redoing some of these intersections. It just takes money and it takes time, and they've committed to it, so now we have to do our best to, increase our visibility at those intersections, enforce the traffic laws that are there, and work with
Wheel.
IDOT to get this done as quickly as possible.
Presence known to them, each step of the way on that, on those road projects, each phase, where is it, what's it coming? We're sure to turn around their requests very quickly. We have one coming up on the agenda next week for the Army Trail. So, when it's action we have to take it right away, we get it back to them, and we keep our presence known to them.
Good.
And, 59 and Stearns has always been one of our top crash-related intersections, and we had one of our detectives take a look at the time and day analysis of when those crashes were happening, and we would send our officers out there, just flood that intersection with cars to target violations that would result in crashes, like running the red light or pulling out into the intersection and cars keep turning on the arrow after it turns red and things like that. And I think some of those instances where we were able to provide that type of data to IDOT, that we were doing that and things like that, helped to get that project through. The problem that we have is in continuing enforcement when there's construction going on is there's not a lot of space for us to be able to do it in a safe manner. So we'll continue to try and step up our enforcement out there and work with IDOT as best we can to get those projects through.
Good.
Okay, so moving on to,
So no radar guns, right?
do you want those out?
No, I'm just kidding you.
Moving on to professional development detail. So one of the challenges I have now with some of the people who have retired and who have had a lot of training and taken those skills with them when they retired, and now I have new people in new positions, and I have to get them training, and I have to also set the department up for the future with a succession plan, because a lot of my command staff is getting to the point where they could retire. So taking a look at our professional development detail, you'll see we actually requested about $125,000 in professional development. We settled in our budget meetings on $110,000, and so my job will be to kind of evaluate this and make some cuts to that. Actually, I have to make $15,000 in cuts right away. One of the good things that just occurred is we have a spot in here for the Suburban Law Enforcement Academy, actually 3 positions at $3,200 per recruit. And we just heard that similar to the other academy we use, the Police Training Institute at the University of Illinois, Celia just got approval from the Illinois Training and Standards Board to reimburse the academy directly for those funds. Prior to that, if we sent somebody to Celia, we would have to pay those funds up front. The state would still reimburse the village, but it comes out of my professional development budget, so that won't happen anymore, so I can reduce those fees there. There's some other things in here. There's been some changes in the state statutes that require certain training now, like for lead homicide investigator, for sexual assault investigators. There's certain certifications that we have to have now to investigate those types of crimes. So those are important trainings to us. Some of our traffic crash investigators have retired. Another one could retire anytime. So we have an officer, one of our newer officers, who volunteered himself to go through those classes, and those are the Northwestern Center for Public Safety Accident Investigation classes you see. That's all for him. Got a CALIA conference on there for accreditation manager. A few other conferences. The ILETA conference in St. Louis, that's one of those conferences where we have to have certain people who are certified to train certain classes, and then we also have to get our training certified. We have to make sure our people all of our sworn officers go through those certified classes, and depending on what class it is, it's either annually or up to every 3 years. So that's important for our people to go to that training in order to get certified. Some of the other things in here, I don't know if you have any questions about conferences or associations. I'd be happy to answer those for you. Okay, so moving on to the rest of the training, we've got some firearms training. I talked about the Civilian Law Enforcement Academy. I can reduce some of those fees. And then we've got our warrant team training that's coming up. Again, this year, that's an annual training. And that's pretty much it for professional development. So we'll continue to go through there and make some cuts to get us into that $110,000 range. As far as professional associations, that stayed pretty much the same as last year. There may have been a few members who were added or deleted based on promotions or retirements, and I think maybe one new association, but there wasn't much of an increase on dues at all. As far as line item goes, seems like the most expenses in our line item had to do with personnel services. Insurance and pension were kind of the two highest ones. Our CAD interface maintenance and computer services. DUCOM has some new building fees that were added there. As far as fuel goes, the new generator for the new police department will be operating off of diesel instead of natural gas like our old one did, so we had to add some extra fuel costs for the generator. And that's pretty much it. I think Todd covered the fact that they were upping each department's central services contributions, so our central services are up a little bit there too due to that. Unless you have any other questions, that pretty much wraps up the police department budget.
Chief, the salaries are the same, but your group insurance is up considerably, like over 100,000.
The way that we budget group insurance, it's not, at the beginning of the year, we budget so much per department based on how many full-time employees they have. It's not based on their actual type of insurance and the actual cost of insurance. So we budget that at the beginning of the year, and that amount is allocated monthly as far as insurance costs go. And then the salaries fluctuate based on whether they have retirements, openings during the year. And that's why the salaries was down, but the insurance does not fluctuate or adjust during the year.
I don't like that answer, but okay.
Chief, it's not much, but on page 14 under firearms and defensive tactics, isn't the new building going to have quite a capable pistol and rifle range? And is there really a need for the St. Charles pistol rifle range? We're going to have a brand-new facility in our building that can probably accommodate both?
Yeah, that's a great question. What the St. Charles range offers is a 100-yard range. Our rifle range in the police department is 25 yards. So it allows our officers to shoot at a longer distance. It also offers the ability for the officers to shoot outside. We shoot all around the year, so they know how it feels like when they're shooting with gloves on, with heavy clothes on, things like that, because we're not always shooting in perfect conditions of our indoor firing range.
So it's only a 25-yard indoor range in the new building? That's it? Okay.
How far was your shot for your hog?
Long ways.
You got two with one bullet.
Thank you, Chief.
You knew that, right?
No. I'm at 112,800.
Mayor and Village Board. The Building Department continues to stay busy with all the new development and the economy doing well. Permit numbers continue to stay strong, and staff stay busy. Try to continually stay reduced on line items. Currently, we're reviewing some new permit software to enhance the building program, and code enforcement officers. We're looking at trying to establish an online permit submittal where applicants can actually submit permits back to us to kind of get up in there's very few towns that do this right now, but I would like to be able to look at that opportunity for the village. Digitizing files is and adding scanners for our permit techs in order for all new permits to be entered over in our database. We are currently out of space in our building department. We have no more room in our files and no more files that we can add anywhere. So we are actually scanning some of our existing permits, and every new construction now is going to be added into our database. So we're going to become the green department again. Let's see. Our strategic goals on the next page. For short term, we continue to provide updates in the Bartlett letter and on our webpage, our handouts, flood information, home improvement day, those type of things. Our home improvement day is going to be in June at our Ace Hardware this year. So we're working with them on that day during the morning. We're under complex items. We're ordering new code books. We're starting the process of updating our code again. Last time we did that was in 2012, so we do it every 6 years. That code comes out every 3 years, but it's a lot of work and reading in order to do that. So we'll probably be updating in 2019 the 2018 code, a set of I-codes. And Paula's ID committee has recommended changes, and we have already started the implementation to improve the process in our department, and it's going well. Under strategic goals, routine goals, building permit program is what I basically talked about, what we're reviewing. Some of our highlights, improvements in Bartlett is on all of our drainage concerns that we receive. We receive roughly about 100 a year, and we work closely with Dan's staff, and hopefully some will start to go down as we add improvements throughout the village with additional storm sewers. Stormwater, we achieve compliance on all our stormwater projects, so we're real diligent making sure that all erosion control measures are complied with weekly. I also completed my CRS recertification with FEMA and ISO, and I have some good news, but I don't have it tonight. It looks like we're going to be another credit point lower, so that allows another 5% discount. But I'll officially bring that to you when I receive it from FEMA. VBRs, we're estimating roughly about 50 homes to be registered this year. And then on the next page, we continually assist new and existing businesses in town. So our staff does a great job of helping existing businesses and new businesses that are looking into some of our existing places in town to be able to move and open. We work with the fire district on annual inspections and all life safety issues. Constantly work with the fire marshal and the chiefs. We work with residents to keep them up to date on all our inquiries on permits. We've issued $72 million, we approved $72 million in improvements this year in the village. So, I mean, village is doing well. The next page under our building summary, our staff is continually, we're staying the same. Single-family permits, we're going to be right about what I estimated, but we're going to be close, probably closer to around 26 to 30 this year. Same for next year. Is what, about 26 is what I'm estimating on what we see. And I also get projections from the actual builders themselves on their numbers. So, and we try to keep those numbers somewhat consistent. Our inspections, right in the middle upper side of about 5,800 inspections a year. Also in town, we have, as of last week, 260 homes that are for sale. So, there's a pretty good number of homes that are, and we never know once a house goes into foreclosure. It can be like a last minute, and then we get notified. And we try to stay on top of it. My staff does, just to, make sure that, there's not debris or, doors are left open, those type of things. That's what usually happens. They move out quick. The next page, we're not requesting any new personnel requests. Then the next page after that is our capital outlay, proposing the scanners for each of my support staff to have and enter permits as we do them. So we used to be able to have to scan everything at our copy machine, which when someone would come in, we would need to make copies and it would stop them and they forget where they're at. So the scanners are relatively, pretty inexpensive, and they just look like a little laptop sitting on your desk. So they seem to be working out so far, the one we have. So, and then office chairs for my 3 support staff. There are some of they're kind of all breaking down, whether the backs are breaking or whatever. And then a plan table for my permit technician. The next page under professional development, I cut that by 13%. And from last year, otherwise they're pretty much the same. Don is the president of SBOC, so he's going to the conference, but they pay for him to go there for that. All the associations are the same. And the only thing different in my line items that's a big jump is my temporary salaries has increased because we moved it from the building inspection services. I had to raise that a little bit to compete with surrounding communities because I lost my general inspector this year just because I obviously didn't pay him enough. And that's pretty much it for the building department. If you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer.
I had a question looking at page 10. Document imaging services. We're looking at a 67% increase in your note, or your comments are commercial and industrial large plans digitized.
Yes, what we have is our large architectural plans for a lot of our commercial buildings, industrial buildings, and we're running out of room in our big file storage room. It'd be nice to get those scanned on document imaging. And so we send out what we can each year. This year it was like $900 for some of our files, but we've had quite a bit of development the last few years, and those things are like that thick.
So when a commercial or industrial builder comes in, do we require them to submit the drawings electronically or digitally?
What we do is we still need our field sets for us when we're out in the field for the inspectors to be able to review. So we require 2 sets of those. So one we keep, full set in our office. The other one is for the field set. So. I mean, we do review them electronically for like our consultant that reviews them, or and other ones as well.
Would it be something that we could request that they do, that they give us a digital copy?
Oh, yes, we could definitely do that.
Because I think that bumped up against that in a couple communities, and usually the architect or the engineer is able to do that for us.
Okay. Yeah, I think as
Save
long
you
as
some
we can
time.
print out the document, I mean, I think we have to keep it for so long, so I'll check into that. Anything else?
I think that's good.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Board. We'll go through Public Works, starting with street. I'll try to go through it fairly quickly. One of the main things that you'll see changed in the street budget is, it is slightly up, but that's mainly because we no longer are doing brush. So with that extra time, we're planning to get storm sewer, pavement patching, bike path maintenance, a lot of those things. So in order to do that, we had to up some of those materials so that we have the asphalt and all that stuff to be able to get that stuff done. And most of that stuff we're going to try to do in-house with our crews, so that'll help control some of those costs. One thing we did do this year to help offset some of the costs are we went back to our original 50/50 tree purchase program. We've been, as you know, dealing with the emerald ash borer for several years. We had a $50 tree program for the past 3 or 4 years. And at this point, I think the orders aren't as, we're actually out for tree purchase orders right now, and it's been pretty slow. There's just not as much demand right now for people planting trees, so we'll kind of go from there. As far as strategic planning goals, one of our big things that we're going to be focusing in on with all the construction, the chief talked about IDOT and all the construction that's going to be starting. If you've been on 20, you've seen the barricades. They've been out on Stearns. We want to make sure that we post all that stuff on the website, utilizing Twitter, all those different social media avenues to try to keep the public informed. Just a side note, we are going to be starting the Stearns Road box culvert project at the beginning of April. Just a reminder, that road will be closed for 2 months. We'll be putting up, using the police department's message board, we'll be putting that up next week, notifying the public that travel that route. I'm sure we'll get calls on it, but it's real narrow there, so for the contractor to be able to work, safely, he's got to be able to shut that road down. We're also looking at, I talked about in-house work. We did some actual concrete sidewalk for the first time last fall, and it went well, so we're looking at continuing to pursue some of that stuff, which will also help. We still have a concrete program that is out to bid and will be coming to you shortly. That's a bigger project. Our guys would not be able to do something like that, but small pieces where a water main break gets done, we get into concrete, and our concrete contractor just left, so he's out of town for until next year or whatever. Now we might be able to take care of some of those pieces so it doesn't sit as long. We already talked about the IDOT stuff. As far as getting into personnel, staffing, we continue to have one street maintenance worker, keep that position open. The only addition that we're proposing is kind of a joint position. We're looking at a GIS intern that would be shared between community development and public works. That person would be able to help us. We just recently purchased a new GPS unit, and we want to be able to have that person out GPS locating our utilities and all the building stuff, community development stuff that make our GIS maps that much more accurate. So you'll see that on the personnel sheet. As far as capital outlay, for the most part, it's existing equipment that's in need of replacement. You'll see the 2 large dump trucks and pickup truck. We've got, we're proposing a fire detection system in the west garage. If you recall, we have the street garage, and then we had what we called the cold storage garage. We built that new addition in between them. That's fire protected. The street garage is fire protected, but the west garage is not. So we want to get smoke detectors and that type of thing. And it's not a sprinkler system. It's more smoke detection. So we get notified if there's an issue. And then we're also proposing a new skid steer loader. It'll help with, now that we're going to be doing more bike path, pavement maintenance, storm sewer, and that'll help. Right now, we only have one, and with multiple crews out, it'd be a lot more useful to have a couple of those. And then during snow operations, our parking lots, we're finding that with how tight some of the parking lots are, maneuvering around with the skid steer is beneficial. As far as professional development, it's pretty much the same program. The last item is new, Public Services Institute. It's a program through the DuPage Mayors and Managers Public Works Committee that I sit on. We worked with the College of DuPage to put, this is more like a management training, so someone that's looking to get into a supervisory role, it'll help them get the background on that. It's open for all public entities. They worked with the DuPage Mayors and Managers and College of DuPage. It just started, I believe, in the fall of this past year. They have like a fall program and a spring program, and they're looking to continue that program moving forward.
Yeah, that's a program that we hear about a lot at the Managers Committee in DuPage Mayor and Managers. It's brand new. It's very similar to some of the programs that like Northern Illinois has, and some of the more management training type classes that we send the police to. I really think this will be beneficial to kind of build the bench over at Public Works and getting some of our supervisors up to speed.
Professional associations proposed to be the same. As far as line item, you'll see those difference in line items based on the added quantities or reductions therefrom. One I wanted to point out, services to maintain traffic signals. One thing we're running into, the Opticom equipment, which is the emergency preemption equipment that you see the flashing light when emergency. A lot of our stuff is obsolete, so as it dies on us, our contractor, we pretty much have to replace it. We can't find parts for it anymore, so we're going to go through and start replacing those. The good news is with IDOT doing all those intersections, we already have it built into our agreement that they're going to replace it with brand new stuff. So we've got 20 and 59, Stearns and 59, Army Trail and 59, West Bartlett. All those will be taken care of when those come due. And then you'll see on stormwater facilities, that one went up a lot. That's based on our capital program that we talked about last, I guess, November, December. We've got a lot of stormwater issues that we deal with all the time, and we just need to start ramping that up so we can address some of those different issues. Some will be contracted out, depending on how large of a project is. A lot of them will be our crews doing them. We just need to be able to buy the structures, buy the pipe, the stone, and all that stuff. So we're factoring that all into it. And then we also have the transfer to municipal building. We're proposing the police department's supposed to be moved in and done by the end of this year. So next spring, we'd be looking at coming through and resurfacing all the parking lots around here. They're in need, but with all the construction going on, we wanted to wait until that was done. And so next spring, we would be proposing at this time to get that resurfaced. With that, I'll open it up for any questions.
Everybody's excited about your public
All right,
works.
we'll move on to water. I think you all know what we're working on the water side. The biggest increase that we're seeing in the budget right now is Elgin has proposed a 7% rate increase in 18.
Was that contractual?
Yeah, that gets passed on to us.
Yeah, but
Yeah, it's part of
but we're,
we pay 1.25 times whatever their rate is.
so they bumped their rate.
So they bump their rate, therefore ours goes up.
And they blame us for bumping the rate, by the way.
Yeah. So it's $300,000 or $400,000 that we have to absorb.
Yeah. So, as you know, our goal is to.
For 2 years, is there any way to shift less?
Less water from them?
Dependency on them?
Not, we have a minimum that we
Actually,
need.
it's only about 1 year now, right?
Well, it's going on that, yeah. Don't remind me. There's a lot of work to get done at that time, but we have a minimum that we have to take, so we're making sure that we get there. Otherwise, there's a penalty, but
Don't go 1 drop over.
we do need it. I mean, our wells, we get by, but I mean, we had to do an emergency repair on one this year. But yeah, we'll definitely keep that in mind as we move forward. And we're gonna, as we get into all the projects associated with DuPage Water, I'm working with village staff to get the website updated and have all that information posted and information available for the public to be able to view. And as we get into construction, we'll be posting construction pictures and all that stuff. So it should be neat to see the progress as we move along. Like I said, right now we're ready to go out to bid. We're in for permits for our pump station that we did site plan review on, transmission mains that need to get done. They're in for permit with the IEPA. We're working through the loan process, shooting to have a lot of that stuff to you on April 3rd, so that we can get, our goal right now is to get the IEPA, get on the list for IEPA loan funding in July, which is their new fiscal year. And provided we get that, then hopefully construction starts in August for all that stuff. That's where it's a tight schedule, because we got August until May, which is a very tight schedule. So that's what we're pushing for. We did paint the Kent Circle water tower, and we're proposing, if you remember in the capital budget, painting Bill Olivia. Tom actually met with our consultant today to start putting those specs together. We're going out to bid and hope to have it painted this summer. Again, the only staffing change is the cost share for the GIS intern that we talked about. The only capital outlay that we have is a new roof at the Oneida Garage. Pretty much professional development is the same, along with associations. Line items, like I said, it's the 7% Elgin rate increase is the big thing. We were able to reduce the service agreements because we're not expecting to do a media exchange out at well number 4, which is good. And pumping less well water, less chemical treatment. We've got some water on equipment maintenance materials. That's up $5,000. We're adding ground storage, tank cleaning, just to keep maintenance on those. And then we're looking at doing some seal coating of driveways, just to more ongoing maintenance. With that, if there's any questions. I'll move on to sewer. Sewer, the main thing we're working on with the sewer, our centrifuge that is, how old is that now? 5 years old. It's actually in need of repair, so there, you'll see in the line item, a pretty significant increase in that area, mainly because we don't have grit removal. So when that thing is spinning, the grit that's getting in there is actually eating away, and it has to repair it, which is why we're in the process of trying to get a loan for that plant as well to take care of all that. We continue to work with MWRD on our Devon. We're hoping to work an agreement with them shortly, and we'll be bringing that to you to resolve the issue with our permit. We did smoke testing in the area east of Oak, north of the tracks. We have a bunch of improvements to address some of the stuff there, so that's all part of the stuff that we're addressing. And this year we were able to replace our new Vector truck. Probably seen it out and about. So we're good to go for a long time, hopefully. So again, no personnel change other than that GIS intern. As far as the capital outlay, I talked about that repair for the centrifuge. We've got a replacement diesel generator. That's one that for some of the lift stations, we don't have on-site generation. We have a tow behind. So we're replacing that one so that we have something that's reliable for those facilities. And then we've got a tow behind trash pump for, if a pump goes out, we can hook up a tow behind and be able to take care of that. And then a utility box for an F-250. Same on professional development. It's pretty much the same, along with professional associations. Line item, one thing that we did have to increase is chemical supplies. Our sand filters are at a point where the sand just keeps washing out when we do it. So to counter that, we've been chlorinating year-round, which typically we don't have to chlorinate come October through April, May 1st. But in order to still meet our limits, we're chlorinating to kill anything there where typically the sand would remove that, but to make up for that, we're having to use some extra chemicals that again will be addressed with the ultimate improvements. That's really all I had for sewer. Questions? And I'll move on to parking. I think the only change we have on parking is, if you recall, last year we proposed park benches. We replaced some last year. You might have seen them around out by the fountain. I think we've replaced some of those. We're proposing to add 10 more park benches to replace some of the ones that are falling apart. I think that's really the only change for parking. The only other change I see on the line item service agreements, we did, remember we had the coffee shop that was in there. Part of their fee was if they cleaned it. Well, that didn't quite work out. So now we actually have a cleaning person. So we're paying for that. So that's the increase on that. That's all I got.
Covered just about everything, haven't we? Community development. Oh, okay.
Good evening. Community development is continuing to move forward in reviewing our projects in the village. We handle the planning, zoning, the GIS mapping, addressing, recording of plats. We process the FOIAs and issue various permits for residential, commercial, property maintenance code, and we have, as Paula mentioned, we have added the health officer full-time in our department. We traded him out to admin for economic development. We think it's the Cubs when they traded Ernie Broglio for Lou Brock. So those of you who are my age will remember that. Nobody else will get that.
I was there for the trade.
We continue to issue review projects in both the Blue Heron Business Park, the Bluff City, the Brewster Creek Business Park, the various commercial areas around town, and we'll continue to work with all the technical staff in reviewing the projects that will come in this year. There's a lot of talk, but so far we've only really gotten one big project coming in, and we expect a few more. We'll, as in terms of our goals, we continue to educate the residents on the various projects that we're working on as we staff the Plan Commission, Zoning Board of Appeals, Bike and Run Committee, and now we don't staff the EDC. That has gone into administration, but working with those various commissions. We have done, we no longer have the Kickstand Classic. Some people cheered for that. Some people are remorseful over it. But the bottom line is we will save some money on that. It was fun working with the Active Transportation Alliance, and we still will keep in touch with them, and if they ever want to restart the program, we'll be available. We've, as you know, have done our transit-oriented development plan. We hope to take a step forward in implementing that. We've done a few things where we've applied for grants for our accessible sidewalks, working with the police department on the speed limit reductions. We applied for a grant and received a grant for additional bike racks and a bike shelter around the metro station. So those are all things in the plan, and we hope to move forward on a new development project on one of our properties that we still own. We have done work with the building department and trying to review processing the building permit and development process and make it more streamlined. One of the things that has been awarded or approved is the administrative site plan review process, where they go right to building if they don't have special uses or variances, and we've done a couple of those, and we hope to do more of those in the year. We've worked on, with the TOD plan, again, the village property that we have, and we hope to see that come to fruition in the near future. In terms of improving the village bike and pedestrian path routes, we've worked with the Bike and Run Committee to improve, as Dan pointed out, working on maintenance of, one of the goals is to work on maintenance of our existing path system. And we've received an Invest in Cook grant, and we've done the engineering for a drainage bike path project along west part of the road, and we're soon to follow that up with a subsequent application for the construction of that project, which will probably go in tomorrow, that Tyler has said about. And that will be what the engineers design we can build, and that includes a little bike path. Service delivery methods, we're moving everything out with emails and getting our, trying to get to the paperless stage. We're not quite there yet with our commissions. We applied for tablets for all the commissioners, but those are expensive, so we removed some of that. Maybe next year we'll try again. We've kept our FOIA system up to date. We initially processed all the FOIAs. We're probably close to 1,500 a year, the bulk going to police and building, but we make sure everybody in each department is trained in freedom of information records response, and that we regularly maintain the online FOIA system and try to upgrade that. In terms of the TIF districts, as you know, Brewster Creek, we have the whole realm of TIF projects, from the most successful at Brewster Creek, the medium successful at Blue Heron, and the not so successful at Lake and 59. We are going through a rezoning on that property and we've, as you know, we've hired a broker to try to market that and hope to bring something to you in the near future that may break that streak of nothing happening on that TIF district. Working with everybody on 59, I can't say enough about the projects that is going through. I can really say IDOT has been very helpful to us. They just take a long time. And we hope, and we've got, hopefully soon we'll have some news in 59 and West Bartlett Road as they move forward at our request and revamping that project. Roadway improvements, traffic mitigation, we're working with not only our police, our public works, the surrounding towns, and with IDOT. And then some other highlights, Blue Heron Business Park has attracted, there's been 3 buildings built. We're seeing some rumblings about additional development up there, which we hope to work with the owner of that property to bring a couple more projects to you and get those moving. The first Bartlett Point West, which we approved, was the first residential subdivision in Kane County, and those will be some of the future homes that will be built that Brian's projected. Brewster Creek continues to thrive. There was almost 750,000 square feet. We hope to see a couple more projects up there. We continue to update our zoning ordinance. We did the office district. We're going to bring some of the commercial stuff to you soon. Home Depot approved the commercial outlet at Home Depot, the Everwash car wash, and staff worked with Amita on the remodeling of the Dominick's. In terms of staffing, on page 5, the staffing pretty much stays the same, and as Dan has mentioned, we are sharing an intern with Public Works, and he will be split, and I realize this, he'll be split 4 ways in Public Works and 1 way with us, so we'll have to figure that out, but it's all GPS locating because we've got the new equipment that we will improve our accuracy of our infrastructure for development purposes and for marketing purposes. In terms of permits, code, we've continued to be around 500 for code complaints. Industrial, commercial is right around 30 or 40. The FOIA is 1,400. Lots of GIS maps generated. GIS, although it's in our department, they service the entire village. So GIS works a lot with police, public works, finance, with everybody in preparing those. We do the addresses, documents, and we issue various permits, and again, staffing with the zoning and plan commission. Again, on the next page, the GIS intern, which the guy's going to have a lot to do, and he doesn't know it yet, or girl, should be either one. GIS is a new field that is expanding all the time, and there's just so many things that you can take advantage of it with us. Moving forward, we've experimented with a tablet for one of our code enforcement officers and working with IT. It has been very successful to date, so we were hoping to purchase 2 more tablets to improve the efficiency both for the other code officer and the health officer / code officer that we have employed. Professional development, basically the same as last year. We added pest control seminar because of the health officer and going to that. And in terms of GIS, that's paid out of central services. And the economic development, professional development is now in administration. Associations, pretty much the same with the addition, the health officer is a sanitarian. So he will have to get his license, and he belongs to various health associations that, and then with Tyler, who's half public works, half community development, we pay for half of his professional management associations. In terms of our expenditures, again, the GIS, we removed the kickstand, which dropped our advertising budget quite a bit, but it went all into admin. We, for some reason, are now having to pay for our legal notices. We decided that's a lot better than just trying to work it out of central services. So we budgeted for our required legal notice publications for both Plan Commission and Zoning Board. So you'll see a big increase there. And previously it was in central services, and it was difficult to do from an accounting standpoint, not being an accountant. And then the other thing is the tablets for the code officers in the field. And then, as you notice, I have the rebates in mind. It's the same rebate, that's Ace Hardware sales tax rebate, so that'll stay the same. And then in terms of light items, just materials, automotive supplies, we continue to budget $5,000 for emergency board up and cleanup purposes, which we use every once in a while, so that's helpful. And that's pretty much it. If you have any questions, I'll try to answer them.
I would imagine that the bulk of the legal notice costs are actually reimbursed by the petitioners.
No, they are not. We charge a pretty flat fee for them, and the legal notices range from about $75 in the Examiner to $125. For a variance, we charge $300, and staff time and review of that, maybe some of that's picked up, but we don't take that legal notice and pass it along. The only thing we pass along to the developer or petitioner is our consultant fees or our village attorney fees on reviewing an ordinance or preparing an ordinance. But we don't pass along the legal notice, and we do our own in-house signage where you put the sign up on the property. We do that. Dan's people cooperate with that.
I think we ought to have the petitioners pay the freight.
We could do that. We are proposing increasing our fees, but go ahead.
She was correct, the CD department is reviewing all their fees that they
Okay.
charge, we can put that in there. I would just ask a question about clarification. You know, if we have petitioners who are residents who have,
Right, a variance or,
Right. That's different than a 100,000 square foot industrial building. Yeah.
yeah, we can certainly charge the commercial and the public or the private developers the fees and not the residents, and we could work that out. Yeah.
Anyone else have any questions or comments?
I had a question on Public Works. Sorry to go back, Dan. I noticed that there was I've lost my spot, but I noticed that it was a professional training or event for arborists, and there was 2 people going, but we've only got 1 village arborist. And I was wondering why we were sending 2 people.
Oh, I think what we end up, the arborist goes, and then the guys that, what she's been doing is taking the guys that do most of the tree trimming, because there's a lot of training on proper tree trimming and that type of stuff, care for trees. So she'll usually bring someone with her, I think is what that is.
Okay, so now that makes sense, given that we're actually going to have time to trim the trees now. Okay.
Anyone else? Questions?
I have one for Dan. The arrangement that was at the coffee shop, I believe their rent was reduced by them cleaning the place. Now that we have to pay for that cleaning, are they still reducing their rent, or did they go up?
No, it's a new vendor and they're paying,
Okay,
I believe, right?
different agreement. Okay. Last but not least, since we're finishing up here, last meeting, Trustee Ranky brought out the point that we may not need the projector. Unfortunately, when he said that, nobody heard what he said because we have this wonderful system. Is that something we can trade off? You had budgeted $20,000 for the projector. Can we do something with this, improve it, not necessarily replace it, considering we can't hear each other 3 feet away? Because I think the answer we got, well, the speakers are out there, so it goes out there and comes back, so. They are back there. Sorry.
Okay.
Thank you.
Paula, I'd like to thank you and personally and staff for all the work they put in preparing this budget, and we'll move forward. And if there are no more questions or comments, I'm going to make a motion that we adjourn the meeting.
Second.
A motion, we have a second. Lorna, will you take the roll, please?
Trustee Hammer,
Yes.
Carbonaro,
Yes.
Daney,
Yes.
Cabrera. Yes. Hopkins. Yes. Ranky.
Yes.
We're adjourned.
Better believe it.